welcome to the Hinch Irish Whiskey experience. My name's Terry.
And I'm Claire, and we're the senior tour guides here at Hinch Distillery, just outside Ballynahinch in the heart of County Down.
Today we are going to be walking through our 4 flagship whiskies, the Time collection. In front of you are 4 glasses with 4 very unique whiskies, and we're going to walk through them and identify some of their differences and key characteristics.
Now, don't feel you have to finish them all. It's good to leave a little bit behind so that you can compare and contrast the whiskies afterwards.
So let's make a start into the ingredients room, where we're going to look at our first whiskey, our small batch bourbon cask. So this is us in the ingredients room, where we begin the tours and walk you through the raw materials needed to make premium quality Irish whiskey. The first whiskey that we are going to be tasting is our small batch bourbon cask, and it's a great whiskey to start the tasting with, as it's one of the youngest products we produce here at Hinch. To be called Irish whiskey, spirit must be matured for at least 3 years and 1 day, and our small batch is matured for a minimum of 4 years. So if you look down at your flight, you'll see the names of the different whiskies underneath. The first one, as I say, is the small batch. So if you pick up your glass, and before we taste, we're going to smell our whiskey. It took over 3 years to make. It should take more than 3 seconds to drink. So when you're smelling a whiskey for the first time, the temptation is to put your face straight into the glass. And if you do that, you can sometimes get a bit of chemical burn and you don't smell and taste everything as well as you can. So what I like to do when I'm smelling a new whiskey is bring it to chin level and just acclimatise yourself to the spirit slowly. Then, as you begin to raise it up to your nose, I'll start to breathe through my mouth. The vapours will rise into your nostrils, your lungs are still doing the work, and you get a much gentler flavour pull. So for me, with the small batch, the first thing that hits me on the nose every time is a real soft, creamy vanilla. It's a very light and summer style whiskey in my head. Traditionally, whiskey was always a winter drink. This to me is something to be drank in June, July and August. It has a really light, crisp feel to it. And I'll sometimes get a wee bit of citrus, and depending what way my sinuses are working that day, sometimes I get a really sharp green apple. So a very light and floral spirit. We're going to go in for a taste, and for your first sip I will suggest just enough to coat your palate, and we'll go from there. So as I say, this is quite a young whiskey. It's only 4 years old. We triple distill here at Hinch, so we've put a lot of work into taking out those harsh chemical notes. So for a young whiskey, this is very smooth. There's no real burn. Tasting wise for me, I get a wee bit of toffee and a bit of burnt caramel almost, a light, sugary, sweet whiskey. This is a great whiskey for people who are getting into whiskies for the first time. It doesn't have that big glass of fire you would normally expect. Very light, very crisp, and has that wee sweetness just to take the edge off. If you bring it up again, because you've now tasted it, you'll get a second flavour pull coming through whenever you smell. And again on the nose, I'm getting a stronger hit of vanilla coming through with it. So your small batch is just a nice, easy sipping style whiskey. I find it works quite well as a chaser and brings a light freshness to my palate. And that's our small batch.
This is our spectrum room, a place to see how the cask and maturation affects the spirit over time, and it's really the cask that breathes life into the whiskey. The second whiskey we taste today on your little flight in front is our 5-year-old double wood. Double wood, it's been in 2 different casks. It started off the same as the small batch in Kentucky Oak ex-Bourbon, but the final year of maturation, our distillers disgorged that cask into a virgin oak cask, brand new, so that the liquid will pull more spicy and savoury flavours forward. So pick up the whiskey, bring it up, have a light smell. And you'll see that it does not come out of the glass in the same way as the first whiskey with sweetness. It's much more complex It's deeper in aroma, and you're going to smell much more of the wood coming forward. Have a little sip. On the palate, it's gentler, but you're going to get spice like black pepper coming into the back of your throat. And on aroma, there's leather, there's wood, sweet stone fruit, dark chocolate, and again, another sip, just to be sure. There are so many more flavours coming forward. Now this whiskey has enough complexity in it to sit very nicely with a mixer, Irish coffee, or in a cocktail. The virgin oak itself, well, here beside me we have a stave, a panel from a cask, and you can see that it has been burnt on the inside. This is what brings that more savoury and spicy flavour forward, the caramelisation of the wood and your liquid being the first to pull the flavour from it. So that is our 5-year-old double wood. You can see the difference. If you go back and have a smell of the first small batch, it becomes even more light and buttery again. Go back. That complexity and darkness is really evident, even though the colour is not so different in the glass. Our small batch, our 5-year-old double wood.
Here we are in the tasting bar, folks, and this is where we finish off our tours and also start our gin school experience. And in here we're going to be looking at our third whiskey, which is our 10-year-old sherry finish. You can see straight away from the bottle here, this is a much darker liquid than the first two whiskies we've looked at. This has been matured for 9 years in an ex-bourbon, so it's had a much longer draw of all those tannins and caramels, and then it's been allowed to finish for 1 year in an Oloroso sherry cask. The sherry barrel is going to give it real sweet and cinnamon notes, bringing out to what I would describe as a wee glass of Christmas. If you lift it up to your nose, straight away, I get mulled wine, nutmeg, spice, a really well-fed Christmas cake. And to me, it's just a very rich, and you'll feel whenever you go in to taste it, because it's had so much longer in the barrel, it's had more time to mellow. So it's a very soft and silky texture. The actual mouthfeel of the liquid is different. So if you want to go in for a drink, and it's Christmas. Straight away, as I get that lovely, rich, warm, festive hit. That wee bit of heat comes in with the sherry in the back of the palate afterwards, and it just coats the throat lovely. It gives you that nice, soft, plump feeling on the side of your cheeks. And to me, this is a nice special occasion whiskey. Your small batch is great as a chaser. Your 5-year is great for a cocktail or having in a mixer. To me, a 10-year is one to mark a birthday, a christening, a special occasion. It's a very rich, festive, smooth and sophisticated whiskey. That's our 10-year.
Here we are in the Kilkenny suite that we can use for weddings and conferences, and we're on to the final whiskey of the day, and this is going to be our Peated single malt, the fourth on your flight. Now, peated whiskey kind of divides the crowd. A lot of people come in with preconceived ideas about peated whiskey because they've only tasted Scottish whiskey, but an Irish peated, niche as it is very different down to the triple distillation. When you have a little smell, you'll certainly smell that peat smoke, and in the malting of the grain, the peat is roasting the grain. It gives off a very dense smoke. The chemical within is known as trichlorophenol. It gives phenolic flavour molecules off, and that is what flavours the grain. Smelling again, there's also a little bit of gammon, bacon, that kind of smoked meat aroma onto the palate. Well, you'll see. Sweet smoke. Not as strong as the smell, but it's still there. There's also a crispness of lemon, a little bit of aniseed. It's much lighter than you would really think it's going to be on your palate. And with that, it goes beautifully with food. Cheese and crackers, smoked salmon, a little bit of a charcuterie board, those smoked aromas and flavours matching perfectly with food. Another little taste. Sometimes it's a flavour that people have to get used to before they can enjoy it. 55 ppm in the grain, and that means parts per million, not peats per minute on those flavour molecules. Settles to 27 in the glass. It's actually quite approachable for a peated whisky, and a really fine example of an Irish peated whisky at that.
So hopefully that there's given you an insight into just some of the spirits we produce here at Hinch Distillery.
And if you'd like to know more about the history of Irish whiskey and how we produce our beautiful whiskies here at Hinch Distillery, come on up and have a tour with us, and all the details are available on the website.
And remember, this is just some of the product we produce here. It's early days yet, and there's a lot more to come. So for now, sit back, let us know what your favourite was. Claire, what was yours?
Oh, I'm going for the peated.
I think I might chance the 10.
Cheers. Sláinte.